Blood Done Sign My Name, 2004, by Timothy B. Tyson, is a nonfiction historical account centered on the racially motivated 1970 murder of Henry Merrow, Jr. in Oxford, North Carolina. The book garnered numerous regional literary accolades and was a finalist for the National Book Critics Circle Award. In 2010, it was adapted into a film featuring Ricky Schroeder. The narrative is divided into 12 chapters and an epilogue. Chapter 1 opens with the stark words spoken by Tyson's childhood friend Gerald Teal on the night of May 12, 1970. Daddy and Roger and him shot him a nigga. Tyson reflects on the impact of these words, his parents' behavior at dinner, and his observations in Oxford following Merrow's murder. Looking back, Tyson realizes that these words and the subsequent brutal killing set him on a journey to uncover what happened in his hometown, why it happened, and its broader implications. Chapters 2 through 5 establish both personal and historical contexts leading up to the events of 1970. Tyson discusses the pervasive nature of white supremacy in the segregation-era South, the racial paternalism present even among well-meaning white Southerners, and the sexual taboos that prohibited contact between black men and white women, taboos that led to Merrow's death. He also explores the background of Robert Teal, the father-in-law of the white woman Merrow allegedly flirted with, paralleling his story with that of the Ku Klux Klan, which remained active in the South and saw 3 revivals in eastern North Carolina after World War II. Key figures in these early chapters, particularly chapters 4 and 5, include Reverend Vernon Tyson and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Reverend Tyson, inspired by King's moral appeal for justice, tried to bring the same message to his congregants but often faced resistance. His frustrations as a liberal Methodist minister mirror the broader struggles of white liberals in the segregation-era South. Reverend Tyson, his friend Thad Stem from Oxford, and Tyson himself each embody these struggles in different ways. In chapters 6 and 7, Tyson recounts the Merrow murder and its immediate aftermath. After 18-year-old Larry Teal misinterprets a remark from Merrow about his 19-year-old wife, Judy, a confrontation ensues. Larry, his stepbrother Roger Oakley, and his father Robert Teal chase a fleeing Merrow and shoot him to death in front of multiple witnesses. In the week following the murder, Oxford's black residents protest during the day and riot at night, defying the mayor's curfew order and plunging the town into violence and chaos. The murder also brings attention to Ben Chavis, a 22-year-old teacher at the local black high school who had been radicalized by the events of the late 1960s, and Golden Franks, a veteran of King's Southern Christian Leadership Conference, SCLC, who arrives in town for Merrow's funeral. After the funeral, Chavis and Franks lead a march to the Confederate monument in downtown Oxford. Tyson uses this event to explain that such monuments, like others across the segregation-era South, were erected in the early 20th century not to honor the Confederacy, but as symbols of white supremacy. Chapter 8 marks a shift in the narrative as Tyson explores the often overlooked history of white Southerners who opposed both the Confederacy and white supremacy. He highlights several of his ancestors, including his paternal grandfather, Jack Tyson, a Methodist minister who exemplified this dissent. The book frequently touches on the Christian theme of original sin and the fine line between good and evil. So Tyson also introduces a more troubled family member, a second cousin nicknamed the Gator, who succumbed to his darker impulses and ended up on the wrong side of the law. One of the book's defining traits is its conscious avoidance of self-congratulation. In chapters 9 and 10, Tyson returns to the events following Henry Merrow's murder. Franks, Chavis, and Eddie McCoy lead a protest march to the state capitol in Raleigh. Back in Oxford, a group of black Vietnam veterans, who remained anonymous even decades later, carry out military-style operations, firebombing a lumber company building and 2 large tobacco warehouses. The trial of Robert and Larry Teal begins in late July, but the police's inexplicable failure to arrest Roger Oakley plays a critical role in the eventual acquittal of the defendants. Tyson reconstructs the courtroom drama, highlighting the enormous odds against a conviction. An all-white jury, a judge with political ties to segregationists, and a white power structure closely aligned with the Ku Klux Klan. Despite the prosecutor's efforts, a skilled defense attorney's tactics provide the jury with the justification to acquit. Oxford's black residents leave the courtroom in tears and anger, once again reminded that the system sees them as second-class citizens. The events in Oxford conclude with the trial's end. Soon after, Reverend Tyson is assigned to a new church in Wilmington, North Carolina, but the shadow of the Oxford tragedy follows the Tyson family. School integration heightens racial tensions, and Ben Chavis also moves to Wilmington, where he is ordained as a minister, establishes a Black Power church, and becomes increasingly militant. Chapter 11 describes how Reverend Tyson tries to navigate these familiar challenges in Wilmington. It also details Tyson's own journey as a teenager, growing disillusioned with the world around him. He runs away to live with two older friends in a rural commune, where they live simply and claim to reject societal norms. After drifting through his early 20s, Tyson has a wake-up call and decides to return to school. In Chapter 12, Tyson reflects on how the events in Oxford in 1970 shaped his academic path. In the early 1980s, he returns to Oxford to interview Robert Teal at his barbershop. Teal agrees to talk with Tyson, and after cutting his hair, comments on Henry Marrow. "That nigga committed suicide, wanting to come in my store, and four-letter word my daughter-in-law." Tyson recalls that this moment was pivotal in his decision to become a historian. He then describes the conspiracy of silence he encountered among Oxford's white authorities, especially those in positions of power in 1970. In contrast, Oxford's black residents were much more open to sharing their stories. Tyson concludes the chapter with an incident from 1992, when the owner of a private club told him that his black graduate student, Herman Bennett, was not welcome there. The epilogue recounts a 2001 field trip where Tyson takes a group of students from Wisconsin to Destrehan Plantation in Louisiana, where the U.S. Army brutally suppressed a slave rebellion in 1811. Reverend Tyson accompanies the group, and they are shocked to find that the tour makes little mention of the plantation's enslaved population, instead celebrating the Old South. On the bus ride back, Reverend Tyson comforts the disheartened students with a prayer, reminding them that, like the plantation owners, they are all sinners. Tyson concludes the book by emphasizing the importance of remembering history as it truly happened. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did, and be sure to subscribe. Thank you.